Hello and welcome along. I'm Alan Quinlan and you're listening to episode 67 of the Red 78. And with me, as always, is Niamh Briggs. How are you, Niamh? Another tough week, unfortunately. You're smiling anyway, staying positive.
Always, yeah. It was a very tough week, I won't lie. Um, Difficult to kind of comprehend in relation to so much of last weekend. You know, when you have 60% territory in possession and come away with very little, frustrating. But we've had a good week's training and very honest review. And yeah, we just got to keep going.
Is that more difficult when the perception, so you lost 24-7, when the perception is that this is a real chance for you to kind of get a victory and it's more evenly balanced, if you like, even though Italy are still a very good side? Is that kind of more frustrating? You know, when you played France the previous time, it's, you know, everyone kind of thinks, well, it's going to be really difficult. But this time, you are away from home and Italy's backs were really good. Is that more frustrating?
Yeah, no, I think the most frustrating thing is that we had so much possession and we 13 entries into the opposition 22 and we didn't come away with any try from play. I think that's probably the most frustrating thing in terms of how clinical we were, and our understanding of how to get the ball to space. I think that's been a big learning curve for us over the last few weeks in terms of the pace of the opposition teams, that when they can transition or when they need to move the ball to pace, they can do it. They can do it very quickly. I'm not talking about movement. I'm talking about moving the ball quickly. I'm talking about punching passes. I'm talking about players that are coming onto the ball, understanding how to come onto it a pace without running into the gain line, and all small little things that you only get better by playing more competitive games. So while this group are incredibly young and there's a huge amount of talent, their learning or training age of test rugby is really, really small. We're probably less than 1 year into a project that could take 3, 4, 5 years to implement. So it's about being patient, but also about having expectations of the standards that we set. So we had a very honest review on Monday morning with both the players and leadership group and the backs and forward splits and stuff, and they're very aware of where they are. But the frustrating thing is that when you put something up on a screen and they can see it and they're able to tell you what the actual answer is, they're just finding it difficult to implement it at pace and the speed of thought. So but they're learning all the time, and we've just got to keep going forward. We just can't keep looking back.
And it's a short period of time, isn't it, to kind of recover and kind of get these things right. And again, you're saying the girls are very young. It doesn't get any easier. In fact, it's probably the hardest game you're going to face in England this week. But you've got to keep going, as you said. And there's just one tweet that a person sent to me there. Didn't reply to our usual tweets, but just sent one to me. And it's from Juve Power. And their tweet was, I just wanted to say in support of Niamh and the girls, I really think the public and the broadcasters need to temper their judgment of this team and remember how long it took the men to get to where they are. You don't just turn pro and automatically become a top team. I thought it was a very sensible tweet. I thought it was a compassionate tweet. And yeah, it's nice. You know, look, there's a lot of people think they have the answers online and they're critical continuously, trying to, not some criticizing the team, a lot criticizing the IRFU. And I just think, I've said this, the IRFU got stuff wrong, but I think there's changes that have been implemented. I don't want to drag you into that, but I just think there's...
Oh, no, but I'm pretty much happy, like, as in, obviously on the Thursday or Friday before the game, and an article comes out in the Telegraph, and players are reading it, and it's disappointing. And it's draining, Quinny. I can't begin to describe. So I jumped off all social media, came back on to give the tweets for this week, but that's about it. And because you can't, that outside noise, I understand everybody's entitled to their opinion, and everybody's opinion should be valued. But the issue is that we're dredging up things that are right to be called out 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. But in the last 12 months, since this recommendations from the review have come out, there's been a huge amount of work on by the RFU. And I just think if people could just separate the process from the emotion, take a step back and look, they'll see a huge amount of work going on. Like, I don't know if you guys see any stuff on YouTube or any of the highlights in Irish rugby, but we had an under-18s girls playing Six Nations Festival last week, and some of the rugby was unbelievable. And so yeah, that outside noise is tough. I'm not going to tell you word belie.
I'm not sure that some of those articles and some of the people commenting on that are actually trying to help. I feel that they're trying to bring a toxicity and continuously try and go at the angle of the RFU. And of course the RFU have got stuff wrong before. But I said this before, there's going to be mistakes along the way here. I think they held their hands up after the review and changes have been implemented. Focusing on not having protein in Japan last year, well, like, is that the RFU's
There was
fault?
protein in Japan. Oh, there was protein in Japan. That's just misconstrued.
Like, and I think some people are getting involved in this stuff to try and make a name for themselves, and that's my opinion. They mightn't agree with that either. But you have a young team that you're trying to work with and do the best you can, and that's all you can do, and it's going to take time. So keep going, keep trucking on, and I think there is plenty of support for the women there.
Thanks to that tweeter.
Yeah, no, it was very nice from Juve Carr. Okay, let's move on to the Munster game. The very best of luck this week. It's going to be difficult, but all you can do is control what you can do. That's it. You can't control the opposition. They're a wonderful side, England, and they've scored a lot of points and had 3 really big wins, if you like. Let's move on to the Munster game. Okay, nobody saw this coming, did they?
You most certainly didn't, anyway.
Well, with respect,
we didn't.
With respect, and to be honest, I really thought Munster were going to be better. I thought they were going to sort out some of the problems that they had against the Sharks, i.e., the breakdown, line breaks, tries they've conceded in the previous 3 games. I certainly thought they were going to be better, but you're coming up against the champions in their backyard, in the Stormers, who play a brilliant brand of rugby and who've been superb this year. So they've only lost 4 games. That was their 4th loss, the Stormers. They had 2 draws, but they play a brilliant brand of rugby. There's so much power and loads of Springboks again in the team. So Munster 26.
Just before you, sorry, go on. Munster 26, what? Munster
26, Stormers 24. That's it. That's the score. Bonus point win on Saturday evening. I was there. It was incredible. There was 95 Munster supporters from Rugby Travel Ireland that were there, and they sang their hearts out.
That's what I was going to ask you, right? You're over there because I was listening to your commentary, and at times it looked like the pace or the intensity of the game was so high. It looked almost test level in terms of, it came across that way on television at times, that it looked like it was fairly relentless, and Munster were able to match that. Something that we probably questioned or wondered whether we'd be able to get to that level before. Was it like that in life? Like, was it that like an intense?
Yeah, it was. It was. There was a serious intensity to the game, and I know there wasn't a great flow at times. It was stop-start, but that was down to the competitiveness of both sides. I think the Stormers would be disappointed. John Dobson, their coach, afterwards said, obviously, if you're a losing coach and you're the fancy team and you're at home, you would be disappointed losing the game. That was the first time they lost in 21 or 22 games at home. And again, it's coming up against Munster, who, their last travels to South Africa were really disappointing. The intensity was brilliant. The players were top notch. You know what I mean? We've probably had a period of time where we've been unbelievably positive, and rightly so, from South Africa right up to probably that Glasgow game a few weeks ago. And then they've had a dip, looked a bit fatigued, looked tired, looked overpowered a little bit by some of the opposition. But they responded, and they deserve massive credit for that. Your backs are to the wall, and they started the game brilliantly, which was the key, I think. And all the players who were involved in the 23 contributed. There was some mistakes, some errors, and then, it was just brilliant to be there and see that, and to give themselves a position that it's not guaranteed, but it's almost guaranteed that they're in Europe, they're in the playoffs. But to be in the position now, people were saying, well, if we got a couple of points, 2 losing bonus points out of the 2 games, maybe that that might be the best best you could expect. But to get 5 points against the Stormers on Saturday night was phenomenal. Okay, I put a tweet out. We've loads of positive tweets.
Did your mother enjoy it, Quinny?
She did, yeah. She loved it, yeah. She had a great time.
Did she bring the holy water?
Holy water went into the dressing room, yeah, and they maybe it worked. Hopefully, it worked this time anyway. But we're here with Rugby Travel Ireland, and there's 95 Munster supporters here, and they're loving it. And they got treated to a brilliant match on Saturday night. Everyone was in incredible spirits. And you know what was lovely, Niamh? The players came straight over to that group of Munster fans after the game, and it was really special. So, but look, they deserve the credit. They got the results, much needed results. And as I said, they put themselves in a position that it'll either be, it could be, obviously if results go, they can go a little bit higher. I just have the table here. They can go to, yeah, they could possibly go to fourth if Glasgow lose, and obviously Munster, lots of permutations. But anyway, look, they're in the playoffs, and not 100% guaranteed of Europe, because Benetton or Scarlets could win the Challenge Cup. So that might mean you've got to be in the top 6 in the league to be in Europe. Okay. Because Cardiff will probably win the pool. They'll win the Welsh pool, and that they've got to get a place in Europe. They'll take the 8th place in Europe. Anyway, we have some tweets, so you can read out some.
Yeah, 100%. Gavin Murphy. Gavin Murphy, tough on Joey, but the Healy selection justified. Courses. Would love to see Earl starting again, but realistically, do either Daly or Nash deserve to be dropped? Tom Lundergan said, a brilliant result for Munster, got all the detail right and game plan perfectly executed. Players were rested and recovered. The prep was perfect. Game had intensity of a test match at times. Great to see the Munster dogs snarling from the get-go. Job done already with the playoff, and high no qualification now secured, which is just brilliant, and no pressure now at all against the Sharks. Again, like I said last week, if we're good enough to get a try bonus point against Sharks, we're good enough to win against them, which is a good thing to have. Michael Desmond, excuse me. Our defence in the first 10 minutes of the second half won us the game. It was immense. And Joe, breakdown so much better. Also, having RG in the side allows us to have an obvious go-to in the line-out. This provides us with a good attacking platform and maul options. Norman King, I criticised the front row for the last few, but fair is fair. They really stood up to this one. Barron, Lockman, great game. O'Mahony, something else. Healy, very steady. Alan O'Flynn, initial thoughts. Attack looks great. Last few games, though, we were caught with intercepts. Maybe par for the course when you play this brand of attacking rugby. A huge win on the road, well done. Senior players leading by example, another plus to have them in. Good point. Neil Quinn, what a win. Pack were immense. Great for Barron to have RG to aim for. Makes our line out far more potent. Earl off the bench is a great asset too. Hopefully we can bring the form on Saturday. And Dave Parks, absolutely brilliant display on Saturday. Delighted to see RG going so well. The whole forward pack were brilliant and never took a backward step. Peter Romani had the perfect response to the stupid hand-in-face situation by being unplayable. Thought Murray's defence was brilliant too. Lots of people talking about RG, Quinny, and look, I know we'll talk about it later on, but he's out for this weekend because of a concussion as opposed to a knee injury, which is hopefully he's on the return to play protocols already, so hopefully he'll be okay the week after. But you can start to see some of that match sharpness coming back, can't you? You can start to see his ability, his getting around now in terms of his physicality and his ability then to be able to offload. I saw a still of him catching a ball in the line with one hand. It looked like the ball was a miniature ball. This man is so big.
Yeah, he was brilliant. I think he looked a little bit dazed going off, but he looked frustrated and upset that, that was probably meaning he wasn't going to be involved this week. His match sharpness has improved. It takes a bit of time to be out of the game for that long. I think it would take any players. I experienced a lot of long-term injuries, and when you recover from the injury, it then takes a period of time to really get the match fitness and sharpness up. So he's had a couple of games, and right from the first kickoff, he was right up there for that kickoff, as was Calvin Nash, and they were putting pressure, and they got a penalty. They were able to go to the corner, score. He had really big moments in the game. So brilliant.
Brilliant.
And you think John Klein and Snyman, they're playing well, making so many tackles. Like John Klein made a tackle on Libbok in the second half when Libbok is nearly gone. It was one of those intercepts. Jack Crowley passed it back inside. He goes there. That's the game. They're going ahead, and John Klein just held it onto the back of his shorts or his bicycle shorts or whatever you call them, and stopped him from getting away. So, Snyman was brilliant. Really big brilliant moments to have him back, and he is a loss this weekend.
Yeah, a lot of love for the front row, which is great because they've not had a huge amount of positivity from lots of people over the season. But Brian Curtis echoed it as well. He thought that Jeremy Lockman and Barron deserved a special mention. Is it Malherbe? Is that the Herbe's?
Malherbe, yeah,
Malherbe.
Arguably the best tight head in the world.
Well, Brian thinks his angles in the scrum are completely illegal. Boring straight in the hooker, the worst he's seen. I don't really know much about the scrum, so I'm not going to make any comment there. Mivu, outstanding display and result, but a huge slice of luck with Libbok only getting 1 kick from 6. Anything else this season is a bonus. Focus should be, even now, on next season and what needs to be done to make us real contenders again. Thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. Libbok missing kicks didn't help the Stormers, but for Munster to score the 4 tries, I think just phenomenal. And you have to ride your luck a little bit, but they created that dynamic right from the word go. And someone mentioned the dog and the intensity that they brought. That it was superb throughout. It was really brilliant, and I think that was really important part of it. They got it. We said it last week. If you want to win big games and you're on the back foot and you're up against a perceived better side, you've got to stay in the game all the time. And I think they did that. They had some mistakes. We'll move on to the positives and negatives of the performance. Or have you more tweets?
Yeah, no, I just, lastly from Eugene Dugan, which I thought was a good one. It's a great win, pushed by the second and back row and the Peerless Peter. I liked it. Hard season, missing Conway, Snyman, Earls, etc. And there are still longer term issues in the front row. But a full strength Munster is a fearsome prospect. And while there's breath in Romani, ... He was excellent.
Okay, brilliant. And thanks for all the tweeters there again, getting involved and giving their opinion. It's great that we can get so much interaction. Positives and negatives. Okay, so some of the tweeters there, a lot of them talking about the scrum. So for me, positive, the scrum. It was so much better. I think it's phenomenal for both props in the night for what they did. Jeremy Lockman coming back from being out for a long time to come up against Malherbe, who is arguably one of the best, if not the best tight head. Himself and Tyke Furlong are right up there. Malherbe is a World Cup winner. He's highly thought of by the Springboks. Great scrummager, whether he was illegal or not, legal, he's still a brilliant scrummager. He's proven that. Jeremy Lockman was brilliant. Stephen Archer to go the 80 minutes in that kind of intensity. Phenomenal. And there's one thing about the criticism of the front row in the last while. There's nobody at any stage is saying that they're not trying or they're not working hard enough or not putting the effort in. But I think collectively the 3 of them and the rest of the pack helped them obviously the other night, and they've obviously worked on better techniques, getting a bit lower, whatever the case may be. Dermot Barron was brilliant as well. 2 tries, the tackles he made around the field, assisted tackles, carries he made. So they worked their socks off, and they've got they had to put in massive effort in. I'm sure they're wrecked after it, but they were absolutely brilliant and deserve massive credit. So the scrum was brilliant. The other area where they struggled the last time against the Sharks was the breakdown. It was a big issue throughout the whole game. That was so much better the other night. Why was the breakdown better, do you think, from looking back at the game?
I think it had a lot to do with the ball carry. I think it's a lot to do with that separation or lack of from their support players. But for me, it's the ball carry. It's that little bit of footwork before contact. It just buys you that little bit of it's not even half a second, it's less, but it buys you that little bit of time for the clear out to be able to come in. When that works and the barrels that are coming behind them are connected, it just creates a huge amount of quick ball. And I think that was obviously a huge focus, that and their defensive connections for this week, because I thought that they did both very well.
And obviously the enthusiasm, energy, and work rate to keep those connections. And then you've got to be aggressive when you're coming up against big men. There was a couple of turnovers in the game, but very minimal. I thought Munster were outstanding, and they really struggled with that counter ruck against the Sharks, which we'll talk about at the end, looking ahead to that game. Can Munster replicate that? So the scrum breakdown, we can go through individuals then, which we will in a minute, around the positives. So there was so many more individuals, but right across the board at 23, they fronted up, and then tactically they made some really good decisions. The crucial part for me, and this was the biggest kind of 10 minutes of the game, was after half time.
Yeah.
So you had the tackle in the corner from was it Calvin Nash or Shane Daly?
Calvin Nash.
Calvin Nash. Sorry, Nash's tackle on Hartzenberg. Phenomenal. He goes up the field, then Shane Daly a few minutes later, similar kind of line break situation, space, and he scores. Big moment. So Calvin Nash's tackle was phenomenal. Phenomenal tackle. The two mauls. So Peter Romani steals one. They get a penalty early, right after half time. I think we always talk about, and you know this from being a coach, I do from being a player, that halftime thing is we want to get out at halftime. We want to start well, get the first score of the second half. I'm sure that's what the Stormers were saying. Munster were trying to say the same, probably get up the field, but the Stormers got that opportunity to kick to the corner. Peter O'Mahony steals the line out. Massive moment. They get them all on the other side of the field a couple of minutes later, and even the referee, Craig Evans, who I thought was a really good game, he's saying, how did Munster steal that? It was Gavin Coombs, how he got the ball in the ball and stopped him from going over.
I had to go back. I watched it on my laptop because obviously we were playing around the same time. So I watched it back on Sunday, and I was actually going back on the laptop trying to figure out how he actually came out with the ball. Incredible.
I don't think anyone could see it. I tried to look at it myself, and it was brilliant because they got that. Yeah, they got that momentum going forward. So you think that's 3 tries in that 10-minute period that they could have scored. And that's the game gone for Munster. It's going to be so hard for them to get back up the field and kind of pick themselves up after that. You've got to have moments like that in the game to win, particularly away from home against a very strong side. So I thought that effort was phenomenal. And then they started to believe that they could actually go and do something here. Then they won a brilliant line out, and they had a penalty coming from the maul, and Shane Daly scores a brilliant try. What a pass from Ben Healy. That gave them the belief that, Jesus, they can win this. You started to feel it. Even the Stormers, you could feel it in the stadium. And then Gavin Coombs scores the try in 73 minutes, and that was it. That's the game. They score a try late on, and it's only consolation in injury time. But unbelievable effort from the players. If there's any negatives, like I'm picking the 3 big positives.
Can I just tell you one positive for me, which we wouldn't have probably, they struggled in terms of that wide D, so their ability to get up and nobody, that line integrity. So both centres connecting with a winger / fullback, at least that it allows you to have a bit of confidence to be able to go forward. Like Damian Williamson is probably one of the best broken field runners in World Rugby at the moment. He is so good off both feet. He has the ability to step anybody inside the phone box. He's incredibly powerful, really, really quick. I just think he had a sniff all day. Even if he got like a half a soft shoulder, it was the ability of the next person to jam in and the next person after that. Therefore, like they couldn't get any space. And I just thought, that outside D, we'd spoken before about Fekito and Frisch at times just jumping out of the line and trying to make big hits and missing either man or ball, and all of a sudden we're under pressure. And that was a big thing in the Sharks game as well, by the way. So that exterior D for me was really, really positive. It was really good, our ability to connect there. So that was super.
Yeah, of course, that's a big positive. Yeah, absolutely. And you make a very valid point there about getting the timing right of those, particularly the wingers and that outside wider channel defence. They seem to get man and ball. And I did commentary with John de Villiers, and he actually said that to me, that Munster just got the timing of their tackling and the wider channels really spot on. So that's a very valid point. Of course, defensively, they fronted up with the front up tackles as well. Some missed tackles. It was 25 in the stats. It's a little bit too high. But I'll tell you, Dennis Leamy and the Munster team themselves will be so pleased with the way the application, the connection in defence throughout the whole game. So very few negatives. When you can go and get a bonus point win there, I'm sure they'll look at the video and they'll see that maybe, someone mentioned in the tweets there about being a little bit risky, some of the passes, possibly close to one or two intercepts. But the reaction
I think
overall was phenomenal.
that's just a lot to do with how Jack Crowley plays at 10. So he plays very flat to the line. He's not, dissimilar to maybe Joey, and I think kind of Ben is probably in the between them. But as he comes around the corner, Jack Crowley actually plays quite flat to the line. And when he plays flat to the line, it almost gives license to those outside him to be flat at times. What you really want, though, is if your 10 is going to play flat, completely fine, because it'll literally sit defenders down. What's outside him can't be as flat as him. And at times, I think we're kind of struggling a small bit with that. And maybe that's where we're kind of running out of ideas a little bit. If you can get a little bit of depth, knowing that he's going to be flat, then they're pulling back passes and it gives you time and space. And that kind of the repercussion of an intercept then isn't as much. But it's still so many good stuff.
Okay, brilliant. Well, look, we don't have enough time to expand the game completely, but massive improvement from the second half against Sharks. A lot of good stuff in that first half in Durban. We can't forget that. They won't forget that this week. We'll have a chat about that in a minute. Star of the week, good few candidates. Brilliant performances, right? Before we pick the star of the week, I just want to say about Stephen Archer, Baron Lockman, again, give them a mention. They could easily have, any of the three of them could have got it. John Klein, phenomenal again. He's worked great. Snyman, the back row. Gavin Coombs had such a big second half. He had so many big turnovers, moments, carries. Alex Candellan, the tackles he was making. Conor Murray, control, brilliant tackling. The centres, Frisch, Fekitoa, Mike Haley, Calvin Nash, the whole team. And when you usually end up in a situation like this, don't you, Niamh, when you get a big win like that? You need players, 7, 8, 9 out of 10. They all have to be. You're not going to get everyone hitting the heights, but
can I just say something? We kind of
Jack Crowley was disappointed coming off, frustrated a little bit. He was frustrated with himself, I'd say. But
I think
Ben Healy came on and made an impact.
Yeah, that's just more game time. I think when you're not playing week in, week out, like Jack Crowley at 10, his favourite position, when you get a chance in there, you just want to be unbelievably brilliant. So you're almost kind of forcing things a small bit. But the more you get confidence to play in there and the more minutes you get there, he'll get better and better over time. What's funny? So, I'm kind of falling victim to this too in relation to the front row stuff. But Jeremy Lockman a couple of years ago was up with an Irish squad that were having, unbelievable results and doing really well. And then obviously picked up a string of injuries and you miss out a lot of games and you miss out on form and stuff like that. But I know he hasn't played a huge amount this season because of injury. But how good is it to see him back and his ability? He's just a different proposition to Killer, because Killer's obviously hugely physical specimen that wants to run over people all the time. But Jeremy Lockman's kind of our Tyke Furlong-esque. He's got unbelievably brilliant hands. He's got really good footwork in and around the contact zone. He has this ability to be able to pick those passes. Now, you'll be able to talk about his scrummaging and his ability in and around that kind of stuff. But a fit Jeremy Lockman can be a huge addition to this squad. And I know they'll talk about RG and they'll talk about Earlty and everything, but Jeremy Lockman's just as important for me in that kind of in that conversation.
It was brilliant, and it was a remarkable performance given he's been out for a fair bit of time with injury. No surprise, he was involved with Ireland last summer. He's right on their radar, and they can see the potential that's there. Dave Kilcoyne could be back in this week. Will they be able to go again? Will they have to rotate this? And really the key in the front row is having depth that you can rotate guys off the bench. You see most props only play 50 minutes now in the game because it's so attritional. So, there's more depth and growth in all of them, even the ones that are injured. But one man we didn't mention there when I was listing out the players was Peter Romani. I think he set the tone. He was just unbelievable the whole game. The carries, the tackle pressure at the breakdown, his line-out wins, he's confrontational, just his attitude the whole game. And Joseph Dweba, the Stormers hooker, he had a bit of a scuffle with him. Marvin Ori, who kind of put his hand down his face. You don't want to see that. And then when they were standing, the cameras didn't show it. He put his hand across his face again. But that seemed to rile up Peter Mahoney and the Munster team. And he just epitomised, the attitude of the whole team and the group. And he led from the front. So he was captain. And I thought his performance was outstanding. And he definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, deserves to be star of the week this week. Again, Peter's the kind of fella who he won't be listening to the podcast looking for the star of the week.
He won't be listening to the podcast full stop. Yeah, he was class.
He was player of the match, and I didn't choose it. Neither did John de Villiers, somebody else did. But he was player of the match, and he was outstanding. And I think he epitomised the tone that the whole team set the other night. So
he's an exceptional leader. Like, let's be very realistic. He's very much the heartbeat of this team, and I think one of the tweeters hit their nail on the head when they called him Peerless Peter. He's just his ability to elevate those around him to play to their max is so good. And he's the type of fella. Look, did you play with him? You did.
Yeah.
He's type.
I played a couple of years.
He's the type of fella that you'd want to fucking go to battle with. Like, you'd literally want to. If you got caught down in a dark alley, he'd be the type of fella. You know what I mean? He is. His ability just to punch above his weight, ability to just be so confrontational, not take a step back, and whilst being a little bit ice cold, because if someone puts their hand on your face in a scuffle, very easy to react there. Not once but twice, and I thought he was exceptional.
Their bench was very strong as well, and that was kind of an area I was worried about. Evan Roos, the Springbok back row, come on. He was player of the season last year, if I'm right, in the URC.
He's coming back from a long-term injury, yeah.
Yeah, he was out for a while, and that was a big boost for them to have him on. Jack O'Donoghue comes on and has some big moments in the game. I was really pleased for him. Finian Wycherley had to come on for Jean Klein for a blood injury, and then he came back on again for RG Snyman. So the whole bench, Scott Buckley with Josh Wycherley, Keenan Knox comes on at the very end for Gavin Coombs in the back row, but Ben Healy, Keith Earls, Craig Casey as well. So they all deserve a lot of credit for that. Put themselves in a position now, as I said, in the league. Munster are currently 5th on 53 points. Connacht 4 points behind and 6th. In 6th on 49 points. The Bulls are on 48 points in 7th, and the Sharks are in 8th on 46 points.
Is there a possibility that Connacht could jump Munster, by the way? Sorry, I wasn't
okay, so
aware.
Try and explain this without having a graphic here. So Munster are 5th on 53, Connacht are 6th on 49. So Connacht are 4 points behind Munster. So if Connacht go to Glasgow, they're away to Glasgow in the last game, and win with a bonus point, and Munster don't get anything against the Sharks, well, then Connacht can go ahead of them. The Bulls are in 7th on 48 points, and they are playing Leinster. So if the Bulls were to get a bonus point win and Munster were to get nothing, they could potentially go ahead of them. Now, it would come down to points difference then, and Munster's points difference is 113, the Bulls is 110. So you can imagine if the Bulls are winning, if the Bulls are winning with a bonus point against Leinster, which is going to be very difficult, but they're incredibly powerful. They look like they have a bit of anger back amongst them, the Bulls. So Munster, I think, look, it's likely, this is what I would predict, that it's going to be difficult for Connacht to go to Glasgow, because Glasgow still haven't cemented and guaranteed the top 4. If Munster to win with a bonus point, they could potentially catch Glasgow and slip into 4th. But my prediction here is Munster will end up probably 6th. Connacht will be 7th. And the Sharks, well, the Sharks will go ahead of Connacht. So Connacht and Sharks could be 7th or 8th either way.
Yeah.
So If
So I'll
that's the
play for it.
case, then Munster will be guaranteed. But if they get a losing bonus point or even win the game, if they win the game, they're, they probably don't need to win the game. I don't even want to
Almost
talk about.
inconceivable that you could
Yeah.
actually go, perhaps they could win.
Do you know what? I think the pressure is off them, so it's going to be interesting to see what their kind of aggression levels and intensity is like this week. I don't
It's the
know.
ability to back it up. That's what I would be.
But it's an intriguing situation now, Niamh, because we talk a lot and you learn. No matter how much experience you have, you learn all the time. You learn about the players around you. You learn about yourself, how you can cope in these situations. Of course, they're going to try drive the standard and back up that performance. It's going to be really, really difficult. So if you look at what happened against the Sharks a few weeks ago, what were our big issues? That power, the scrum, the breakdown, the line-up maul. Are we at a point now where we can cope with that on Saturday? We spoke about, is it just size or is it technique, or do Munster have to be smart? I think a minimum standard for Munster on Saturdays is bringing that edge that they brought last week. And that'll be the intrigue. Can they do that? It's a hard one.
Yeah, because it's been tough. They've struggled to back up those kind of, and any team does, by the way. Sorry, not just Munster. Any team. It's very difficult when you're emotionally at that pitch. It's very difficult to get back there 7 days later because it takes a huge amount out of you. So, we literally have 6-7 minutes left. I just wanted to get your thoughts because lots of chat around social media in terms of our papers and people talking about Joey Carvey and not being involved last weekend. And I don't know, I was reading the Independent this morning and my Prendergast's interview from over there talked about, it's been a tough time for him and they're going to rally around and stuff like that, and how much he's got a big role to play for them. It's kind of difficult to change a winning team knowing that, to be fair to Jack Crowley and Ben, they did very well last weekend. I still maintain Joey's a fullback. I know I'm harping on about this all season, but I would love to see him there with space.
And they may put him in there at some stage. He may play fullback this weekend. Who knows? I think it's tough for him, and it's hard not to feel for the player. I think Ben Healy is obviously going. So if something happened, Jack Crowley, then at the start of next season, if he's number one, well, Joey Carvey has to go back in there, and I think he's a wonderful player. I think this sounds kind of crazy, but the season end can't come quick enough for him, that he just needs to go and get a good pre-season, get his head right, have a break and rethink about, trying to push himself back into the Irish setup. I think that's going to be difficult, given the lack of game
push
time.
into the Munster setup more, I think, in terms of consistency of game time.
I mean, of course, there's how many games have Munster left this season? We don't know. It could be, they definitely have one on Saturday. They'll probably have a playoff game that's going to be away from home more than likely. So it's possibly only 2 games left for Munster. So it's hard to kind of say where to get. There's no games there. I'm saying just to get his head right, refresh, try and kind of knock on the Andy Farrell door. I hope Andy Farrell just doesn't, he's not completely gone off the scene there. He may be in training with Ireland. Who knows? But I think he just needs a bit of a refresh. He's a wonderful player and he's he's had a brilliant run for the last few years. And unfortunately, players have this situation that they've got to deal with. Ben Healy, I thought, wow, he was brilliant the other night when he came on. The pass for the try, superb. But that's the situation you want to be in, and it is what it is. It was a tactical decision that he wasn't in the 23. He could be involved this weekend. If we look at the Sharks team, Niamh, Ombanambi, Khaleesi, Oxenche, Thomas Detoy, Grobler, Notche, the number 8, who's an outstanding player. Grant Williams, what a player. He scored a load of tries in the last few weeks. He's unbelievably quick to scrum half. Phenomenal in the Champions Cup as well. Mapimpi, Lucano Am, Werner Koch. Kerwin Bosch, the out half, is unbelievable. So they're pretty decent, this Shark side, and they proved it the last day against Munster. I think the Stormers are Benetton last weekend showed some frailties that if you hold on to the ball for a long period of time and if you're brave in attack and you try and avoid giving them entries into the 22, i.e. giving away penalties that they can kick to the corner, easier said than done. So tactically, you've got to be good and play in the right areas of the field. Do you think Munster can back it up this weekend? I know I've listed off a lot of brilliant players there. Can they back it up this weekend and, finish this series, this trip to South Africa with 2 brilliant wins? They've got 1 brilliant win. Can they do it again on Saturday?
Yeah, I think they can. I think last weekend might have been a bit of an anomaly in relation to the Sharks because they had played away in the Champions Cup the previous weekend. They got knocked out, a bit like the Stormers in relation to where they were mentally. You're also, maybe are they mentally scared by the fact that they're not in that Champions Cup? I think that could be a really big thing for them. And of course, Munster can. It's a big question. It's not really about the Sharks. It's about whether Munster can get to that pitch again as quickly as possible. And if they can, then and then be able to back it up, then they have a huge chance. But look, it's going to be a huge game for them. I'd love to see them get something out of it. I think they need to. So yeah,
I think they need to get it'd be great if they get a performance and attack and really go for it. And there's less pressure on them. And look, they're probably going to make some changes. RG Snyman is missing this week. He's with a HIA, head injury assessment. He got a bang at the end of the game, so he stood down for this game. It's a shame. It's because we'd love to have seen him go again this week. Will there be some changes? We don't know. We'll get the team later in the week, but positive first game. They were outstanding. Just in the last bit of news we have is, and it was kind of announced yesterday, the day before, that Sean O'Brien has signed from Exeter to Munster from the start of next season. Former under-20, Irish international, Connacht's player for a number of years. He's been with Exeter for 2 years. He's played 15 times, so a bit frustrated with the opportunity he's got to start there. But he did start in round 16 against Montpellier for them in the Champions Cup and the quarterfinals as well against the Stormers. So there's potential in this player, certainly. He's 97 or 98 kilos. He's a big lump. He's quick. He's strong. And he's still very young. He's only 24. So Munster had to pick someone up, I think, after Chris Farrell and Dan Goggin is gone. So they need more depth in the centre. So I think he's a good signing. And
great signing. Yeah, I'm really impressed. Yeah,
Nankivell as well, obviously, is the other one that's coming in there. So that's a bit of news we had from there. So anyway, I've got to go out now and see if I can. It's a little bit cloudy here, and we're in Georgia.
Will you make sure you put some sun cream on for the rest of the week? Look.
Well, we're in Georgia at the moment, so we're meeting CJ Stander in a little while. He's coming in to meet the Munster supporters, and this is his neck of the woods. And then I'm going out looking for snakes in the morning to see if I can find any.
Make sure you put a bit of sun cream on there.
I will do. I will do.
I'll see you
okay,
later
that's it for episode 67. 67 of the Red 78 here, and thanks a million, Niamh, and the very best of luck this week. Hopefully, you'll still be smiling next week, no matter what happens.
Always. Thanks a million, Quinny.